And welcome, Karri. So glad you're here. Karri Gregor, the creator of KinderBach. And if you all don't know me, I am Gena Mayo. I have 8 children and I have homeschooled the entire time. My oldest is 22. He is driving to Washington, D.C. today to start a new job. He just graduated from college. So he's driving out there with his dad. And my youngest is 11. I also run music in our homeschool. So I am loving anything that we do that helps you all include music in your homeschool. So Karri, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank
you very much.
We would love for you to introduce yourself. Tell us about yourself.
Okay. My name is Karri Gregor, and I am the creator, the founder of the KinderBach Piano for Preschoolers music program. And I'm born in Canada, and we immigrated to the US in the 90s, in 95, for my husband's work. He's a brilliant engineer. And so I guess that's the basic introduction. And I've been developing KinderBach. I had it available on DVD many years ago, and now we're doing in partnership here with Gena's music in our homeschool, and I'm so glad that she's made it available to another generation of students.
Yes. So in case you aren't aware, yesterday, everything went live for KinderBach on the website learn.musicinourhomeschool.com. So it's available for purchase, and it's 30% off right now. So you can get it with the coupon code KB30. And there's 6 levels, and it has 4 songbooks. So she's going to tell you all about it, but I'm just so excited that we actually have it available again, because it's been quite a few years that you could only buy it like the old versions of the DVDs that maybe you could find on eBay or something, right?
Right. Yes. Yeah. Well, it just it was just too difficult for us. I mean, we are totally family created, family run, and my kids I have 2, and they've grown, and they've left the house. They're both married, they're gone. And this was a project that we started when they were younger, and everybody pitched in and, did some of the work for it. So we aren't a big publishing company, but it took a lot of effort. And then the technology just changed too fast for us to try and keep up. And we weren't making enough money from it to be able to keep up with the technology. So we just had to let it have a break.
And now the technology made it possible for it to be easier to bring it back.
Yes.
For people to have it in their own homes and do it with their children. So can you tell us about your background in music?
Oh, sure. Music's always been a part of my family. My maiden name is Sawatsky, and to this day, you will find in old German hymnals that Aaron Sawatsky was a composer of many German hymns. And so it's just like it's a heritage thing. It's been back, for as long as been part of our family. My dad always led singing in church, and my mom played the piano. She's been a church pianist, since the, late 50s, early 60s. So it's been several years, and they're still very active. She's still doing that. In the 90s, when they retired, they started a quartet, the Singing Good News Quartet, and Mom still does all of the arranging for that. And they've put out albums, CDs, and they tour around to conferences, and they do all kinds of stuff with their music, and Mom does all the arranging for it. But she is also the one who has done the extra songbooks. She did the audio tracks for that. She was a early childhood, like first grade, early elementary teacher, and so she's got a soft spot for kids too, and making things available to them at a level that they can understand. So that was my whole background. And it was just sort of expected that we would all learn how to play piano, for one thing, at least one instrument, and we would all sing.
Mhm.
I went through a private music teacher and ended up going through the Royal Conservatory in Canada. They have a program through the University of Toronto, and I got through the level 8 of that program when I was a teenager, and then I went on to art school after that. So, but that's my music background.
That's so amazing. I love that your mom is with us today. She's still having trouble connecting to audio, so oh well,
Yeah.
but I'm glad she's here. So when did you start teaching piano?
Well, that would have been in the 90s, 97, I guess, after we immigrated, because I'd had both of the children already in Canada before we moved. And they had started, well, the oldest, she had started a program in Canada called Music for Young Children. And when we moved to the States, nobody would take her. She was 4 or 5. She was 5 years old when we came.
Oh,
And of course, they have to be able to read and write and know their alphabet forwards and backwards.
to be
And
able to take private piano lessons?
piano lessons.
Okay.
That was the requirement. That was, like that, no teacher would touch her. Like they
Huh.
wouldn't take her on, it would be some. So I actually, had found a university student. I went, well, and I just started looking at it and I'm going, well, I've got the piano education. I've got that. So I decided that I would start teaching the Music for Young Children course. And I ended up taking on enough children so that my kids would have a classroom experience, because that's what it was. They
Mhm.
had, I think you taught
I did
the
music.
music art.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
same
early
kind of thing.
childhood
It's
music
early
and
childhood. Yeah. Music. Did they bring their kids? The parents bring the children to class. Was that one without parents, with parents, or without parents?
I did it both ways because
Okay.
mine was babies through age 5. So the 3 to 5-year-olds were usually without their parent, but the
Okay.
babies through toddlers were with.
Right. So you're familiar with this kind of a program. So it was a class, you wanted to have enough kids. And so I was just doing it so that my kids could have a piano lessons. And then came the whole schooling issue, which is, I know why so many of the parents that are watching, that's why they homeschool, because we put our child in Canada. They had been experimenting, and it was all throughout the public school system. It was the whole language. So
Okay.
we were getting kids that couldn't read, and we didn't want to have our children didn't to suffer from this, educational experiment, which was what it was.
Mhm.
So, and the academics or private schools being what they are in Canada, it was a prohibitive cost to put them into a private school. We just wouldn't be able to afford that as a young family. And when we immigrated to the States here, we did put her in public school for a while, and we went, oh, they're kind of doing the same thing. There was, disciplinary problems and all this. So we wanted to either homeschool, went back to that, looking at that, but we found a little Baptist church that had, elementary, preschool through grade 12. And they were a third of the cost of what it would have cost us to put our child. And I went, well, this is a way for her to have, make friends, because we're in a new country. We're in a new city, like this is part of socialization and everything. So what we did was I took on more students to cover the cost of them going to a private school. So, and then I ended up being pretty good at it. And I ended up having 55, up to about 55 children coming to piano lessons, and I had 100 of them in preschool, like just music and movement kind of things. So
Wow.
average age was 4.5. So, and because I really found an interest and an intrigue in the whole idea of how education, music education works in the young mind and everything, I did a lot of studying and reading on my own. I read up a bunch on the literature, and I ended up being promoted in that country, that company. I was an area coordinator and a teacher trainer by the time I quit doing that.
So then did you come up with the KinderBach ideas from your experiences teaching that other program?
Well, yes and no. I mean, I didn't intend to quit teaching it. I enjoyed it. I loved it. But then my husband got transferred. So we moved, and the whole kit and caboodle, my whole music studio closed down. You know, like and then you know what it's like starting up in a new city. I knew it was going to take, from experience, it was going to take at least 3 years to get a music studio off the ground and get, because it's a brand new community, didn't know anybody. And so I started thinking about, I was weighing my options, and I started thinking about, I would get back into children's book illustration. I'd been a member of the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators for years. So at this time, I kind of was taking a break, and I started going to all their conferences and learning more about writing children's literature. Okay. And it was something that I wanted to do for a long time. And then I started to try and put all of this together. I was trying to combine my interests, and I wanted to launch a series of children's books that, but through story, taught music concepts.
Okay.
So I started to go down that route, and I had some of the teachers that were really excited, because I knew many music teachers in the state, and because I had been a teacher trainer, I knew some teachers that were pretty excited about this idea. They wanted to use it, but they wanted some worksheets to go with it and whatnot. And we were still unpacking. We were going through boxes of, and we ran across some VHS videotapes, and some of them were of my classes, because I taught in a classroom experience. So we had a VHS camera. Mm-hmm. I used to put it up in the corner of the music studio so that if a child missed a class, they wouldn't miss any of the information. So we recorded. So I was used to recording the music lessons. That was one thing. And then we're in Iowa. I mean, I know you're in the Illinois area. Mm-hmm. So you know what it is to have a snow day. And when you have a snow day with music class, you don't just miss one day, you miss the whole week of lesson, because it's one lesson a week. So that happened. And then I had my children take the VHS camera, and I taught the lesson to the camera and then just made duplicates of it.
Okay.
And so that's the videotape that my husband had seen, that me teaching it to the camera. And one of the parents, she said about this videotape that I'd put over her little 4-year-old, she said, "Move over, Mr. Rogers. We've watched this 17 times this week."
Oh my gosh, that's so fun.
They keep, and I went, that really is interesting. And my husband said, "You should just do that. You should teach it to a camera and do video. And then it doesn't matter where we get moved," because that was always the risk. We could get moved again.
Yes.
Then this would be a separate thing from doing private lessons. So that's how KinderBach got born.
Oh, I love that story. All right. So what do you most love about KinderBach?
Well, I guess the characters. See, I put them up here behind me.
They're adorable.
I have put a lot of thought and effort into their personalities and the stories and the relationships. And, in my reading on the way children learn, relationship is very important to the way they learn things. Like they'll have favorite colors, or they have favorite letters. They almost, when they're so young, they personify things. Mm-hmm. And so if we can capitalize on that, that's why I thought, well, the characters are the way to go. There's many other keyboard programs. I mean, Music for Young Children being one, but there's Kelly Kirby that, started doing characters to the keyboard in the 1930s. And, like even my own piano teacher when I was young, she went, well, you have the cat chased the duck up to E, where it laid an egg, so you're supposed to remember C, D, E,
Okay.
And, but that was just a little memory trick or a memory tool, where what I've tried to create is a community, is this cast of characters on the same level as like a children's classic literature or a children's television show, where the relationship helps them remember. I mean, they know where Dodie the donkey's house is because of the two black keys. Oh,
I got it.
You got it. Okay. They remember because they remember the story, and they remember how his best friend Carla lives next door, and they like to eat breakfast together. And, when Edward the Eagle came to the keyboard, they were so scared because they thought that he was going to try and eat Carla. And, I mean, all of this stuff, that's important. And that the friendships and the relationships and how they kind of work out their little problems and everything, kids remember where they live.
Mm-hmm.
Like this really goes deep into their memory. That relationship is important. And so that's what makes KinderBach unique, is those piano pals. And then, of course, all the other characters that come along with it.
I just think that is genius. I love the piano pals and how they're the name of the character, like Dodie the donkey, is on the letter D. I just love the way that you created all that. And what are some of the other musical concepts that you're teaching these really young preschool age children?
So we've eliminated the need to know the alphabet forwards and backwards, and it's really important. Like each character has a real fondness for their letter. And I mean, I've written a song for each of that, Dodie loves D, I mean, they make such a big deal about their favorite letter, which is exactly what kids do, because, they're often their favorite letter is the letter of their first name, that's what they do. So there's that kind of thing, but there's also the ideas of abstract thoughts that are, you like the idea of beat. Mm-hmm. Beat is the pulse of the music. It's not the rhythm. The rhythm is often like the way the words go or the way the melody goes, but the beat is the heartbeat or the pulse of the music. That's very abstract to be able to get that across to children. And the idea that beat value that goes to each of the notes. So I created the beat bugs. And the beat bugs are this little military organization that try and keep everybody in line, and so different notes get different beat value then. And there's a character, there's a relationship, there's a reason why the children are going to remember that. And then, everybody loves the beat bug march.
Yes.
But the other thing that doing is teaching. So we've got beat value. Then we have the notes themselves, the half note, quarter note, this kind of this thing. It's not the location of the note on the keyboard. It's what the note is doing. So I changed the note value. Those symbols are actions, because if you have a character on the keyboard, like, okay, we're going to talk about the donkey again. Was he over on this? No, this side. There's side. There he is.
Yeah, there he is.
There he is. He lives in the little house there. And when he comes out on the key, is he standing, which is the half note? Is he walking, walk, 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 which are quarter notes? Or is he running? Those are eighth notes. So action drives the rhythm, and that's something that a child can understand. because they can do that themselves, with their feet on the floor. They can make those rhythms, Anyway, there's that. And of course, there's pattern, reading notes by pattern, by auditory, identifying whether the note is stepping up or jump up high, the distance between the notes, and identifying that with a pattern. That turns children into horizontal readers rather than vertical readers of music.
Okay.
That's what that does. Do you want me to go into this a little bit? Are you interested?
Oh, sure. Yes.
Okay. Because when you have a staff, they learn, they do the little FACE, face, they have to remember where the letter goes on the staff. When you come across this note, oh, okay, I have to do this little thing that makes me go up. And then the next one, I have to do the same thing. Well, they're vertical readers. But if they can identify the first note, and then they can say, jump up high, that turns them into horizontal readers, and they're much more fluent readers of music that way. So
I love that you have all this experience actually teaching the children, like you'd had all those years before you started doing it, teaching to the camera. So you actually know that this makes a difference and that this is the best way to teach them. Yeah. You've seen the evidence. Yes. Do you happen to have any students that grew up to be professional musicians?
I have students, not of KinderBach. Okay. I have to say that, because the nature of teaching to video is, especially for preschool, they go on to something else, they're not going to send me an email and tell me, I'm going on to college now. But of the students that I had coming to my classroom, I have several that have become music pastors and piano teachers, and that's really neat. It's always fun. They've got their own families now. I mean, this is well, I'm going to be 60 this year in just a month. So, I'm old. They're married, and they have, and they have kids of their own. These little 4-year-olds that I had in my class, they're it's cute.
That is cute. So what are some tips that you can give the parents, the moms that are watching, or any that watch later on, some tips about how to do KinderBach with their kids or music in general?
Well, doing KinderBach, I'd say you have to be with the child. That's one of the most important things. Some of these programs are, the danger of doing something and teaching to video is that parents will just go, oh, okay, I'm going to play that video, and now I can, go wash the dishes or something. Especially, you can maybe do that when you repeat the lesson later on, but this is a thing for both of you, and for more children at a time, if you've got them in your home, or if you want to have team up with somebody who's doing KinderBach to give the kids that relationship experience. We don't want music to be an isolating experience. This is what gives music practice, that you can remember after you've come home from your piano lesson, your parents said, okay, now you've got to go practice. And that was like being sent for a timeout. You had to go, and you had to be, somewhere out of earshot, because they don't want to hear you doing all that, making mistakes and everything. So then music is a punishment, and we don't want the children to have that experience. And especially the young children here, they need you there. So that's primary thing I would say, is be with your child, do the activity with them. Like if they're trying to play something on the keyboard, you play it at a different octave or something, play it with them. Point for them. Like some kids get really upset about this. Like I saw this in the class, that parents had to keep track for them and point for them as at the notes. I do that on the video all the time. You will
Okay.
see we're always pointing on the video for the music, but if you're doing something, help them, because what happens when they're playing, they look up, they look at the music, they look down, and they've lost their place.
Yes.
So if you can explain, like if the child gets upset and feels like you're trying to direct them, you just say, I'm keeping your place. I'm helping you remember where you are. I'm not trying to tell you what to do.
Okay.
Because that always ends up, that's the thing. Oh, I can do it by myself. And they can't because they get lost. Anyway, so I don't know. I hope
that's
there's
good
a
tips.
list. There's a list in the parent guide of
Yes.
a lot, like 10, I think there's 10 tips, something like that.
By the
So
way,
there's a lot more.
if you all look at the website at any of the levels, the parent guide is actually in a free preview mode. So anybody can read that parent guide, even if you don't buy the course. So that's good. If you go to musicinourhomeschool.com/KinderBach, you'll be able to find all the links there. Okay. What else do you want homeschool moms to know about music education?
I'd say number one, early music education is not an extra. It's always put as an extra. I mean, if you're going to have reading, writing, and arithmetic, I would put music up there in the same class, because, especially for young children, because what it's actually doing, this is part of the scientific research that we found. I mean, there was a study in the 90s from University of California where they tested children who had music lessons with piano, with music, or music lessons, and then they tested them for reading and understanding and everything without music lessons.
Okay.
And of the music lesson people, the piano course ones, they scored like 80%, up to 80% more on their skills, the pre-literacy skills that they needed to be able to. So this is building neural pathways in the brain. And even if they never go on to do another instrument afterwards, if you give them 2 to 3 years of music, when you've got this window of development, they're going to do better in literacy and they're going to do better in math. And that's just a fact. And the other thing I would say that I want parents to know is that a music education, music lasts a lifetime. I mean, you can teach a kid how to kick a soccer ball and be part of a team. I know a lot of people are into soccer and other sports and everything, and that's all well and good, but when they're 80 or 90 years old, are they still going to be playing soccer? No, probably not, but they will still be able to play a musical instrument and they will still be able to sing. And so music is a lifetime activity. It's a gift that you can give to your kids. That's something that they will enjoy for their whole life.
I love that. And the fact that they could do it for others and with others is wonderful too.
It's such a participation thing.
Yes. I did receive a question that someone sent me, so let me read this one to you. She said, is this program appropriate for kids who already can play a few songs on the piano, but just from memory? My 4 and 9-year-old can play songs easily, but could use more formal training. I just don't want it to be too below their level and have them bored with it.
She said, how old, what were the ages again?
Yeah, 4 and 9.
Your 4-year-old for sure. The 9-year-old would probably be a little bit bored with it, but they would learn so much. What I would do is I would kind of put the 9-year-old as, your assistant teacher.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
And then they absorb, because they're kind of the official to start the video or whatever. They're going to learn it too. And even though it's going to be, this is going to be way too babyish for the 9-year-old. but the 4-year-old will embrace it because of all the characters. And there's so much music theory and music literacy involved. It's not just remembering where the notes are on the piano. They're getting a whole encompassing of music reading and literacy and singing and all of it. There's so much of this is a real foundation for music development.
Yes, very much so. Okay, I see somebody left a question in the comments chat. If anybody else has questions for Karri, go ahead and put them in the chat right now. Jennifer says, what is the youngest age this is for?
We have on the parameters, we say ages 2 to 7 for beginning, because a 7-year-old has the same problem as the 9-year-old. This is going to be kind of babyish with the little characters and everything. And 2 years old, they love it, but you have to have a mature 2-year-old. So I wouldn't say where that beginning line is. They would be able to do a lot of the rhythm exercises and learning the characters. They'd be able to participate. The target age that it's written for starting is about 3.5, 3.5. And that's more of a maturity level than I'd say. I had a 2.5-year-old be able to play a whole scale,
Wow.
So this is why this is an age group where the abilities are so different.
Right.
And I would say I wouldn't go younger than 2, but I've had 2-year-olds, especially little girls, because they're really particular with fine motor skills. But there might be some boys that have that as well. It's just, it's really hard to say where the beginning line is. You'd have to kind of evaluate it for your child. If your child enjoys watching, some cartoon programs on TV and they're able to follow this is, and they're starting to learn about games and they want to participate, and this is something you can start with them. And the nice thing about being able to homeschool is you can do 1 activity or 2 activities, and however much they absorb, you just check that out and you can walk away. They can go through it slower.
Right. And purchasing at Music in Our Homeschool is lifetime access. So you can purchase now for your 2-year-old. And if you find out I should wait till they're 3, you'll still have it next year. You won't lose access to it. So if you have an older student, maybe say age 5, can you start at a higher level, or is it still better to start at level 1?
It's still better they need to go through the beginning parts, but they can just go through it faster. They can skip some of the repetition because that's something that we do. Repeat, because
Children need that.
Children need that. And every time you repeat something, it enforces that neural pathway in the brain. And they'll be looking at it in a different way. They will, when they play a song, they're like, okay, I'm finding all the characters, but they can't do it in time to the background music. The next time they come through, they're concentrating on some other little aspect, or they're thinking about the little relationship between these notes and understanding how the distance between the notes. Every time they do something, they're learning it in a different way. It's not just memorizing to young children. They're absorbing on a different level.
I love that. Is there anybody else that has a question for Karri while you have her here live? See if anybody else leaves a comment. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Oh, I was just going to say, as far as the learning and everything, I wrote an article on how music education affects the reading, writing, and arithmetic literacies. And I know I sent that to Gena. I'm sure she's going to be having that available in some way.
I am planning on posting that tomorrow.
Oh, you are?
Yeah. Okay. musicinourhomeschool.com. And that will be posted tomorrow.
And also for the homeschooling moms, there's in conjunction with that, there was another paper that I wrote on. I read through all of the Common Core standards.
Oh.
Yes, I read them. And for elementary.
Uh-huh.
And I cross-referenced what KinderBach does to satisfy some of those Common Core standards.
Okay.
So that's also out there too.
So I don't see any other questions, but I was just curious. So once a student finishes with KinderBach, what would you recommend they do next?
Well, they can go on to doing another program with a private teacher. They're ready for private teachers. I mean, they know all the notes on the piano. I mean,
Mhm.
your private teacher is going to be surprised at how much music theory they know, because it's not generally taught to children this young. Or they can do there's other programs out there for beginners on video. They could participate in some of that. So they're ready for other music education. And, depending on how successful this launch goes, I only wrote a third of the program.
A third of it?
That's only a third of it. I have another 2/3 of lessons mapped out.
Wow. I
Now,
didn't
whether I would
realize you
be,
had that much more
oh
mapped
no,
out. You just got a heart from Casey, I see there.
yeah, I wanted to be able to take the children by video up into being able to play hands together with chords and
Wow.
being able to harmonize with simple melodies.
Love
That
that.
was my target. But it's preschool music, and we haven't been doing the homeschool circuit for a number of years because of the whole
Mhm.
technology thing. But
But now
so
technology is catching up.
is catching up.
We have an app with Teachable right now that you
I
can use with
know.
iOS. So if you have an iOS device, you can use the Teachable app and do all the lessons that way. But Teachable is developing an app that will be able to be used by Android too. So hopefully that will be out soon, and that'll make it even easier for more people to do this. There's a couple of questions here. Barbara says, do music school teachers use this to supplement their kindergarten and first grade lessons? Do you know if any music teachers have used it?
I have, yes, I have a couple of, I know of a couple of teachers that I had tried to launch a whole classroom KinderBach that was aimed at preschool teachers, and that just, once Common Core came in, it was a slug to try and sell that, because preschool teachers were so concerned with meeting these new standards that, they forced onto these young children. I really don't think children this young, you don't need to have standards until they're 8 or 9 years old. But putting it on that this child can't progress into kindergarten because, okay, that's a little thing with me. Just it. So that was a barrier, because preschool teachers wanted something that was just like, okay, I'm just going to buy it. We're just going to go with this curriculum, and it covers all of the standards. They don't have time. If they're trying to meet those and push every student to be able to pass what those arbitrary standards are put out, then they simply don't have the time for music. So, but I do have some music teachers that were using it, and I assume they still are, because there was a classroom version of it that I was selling at one point that was by DVD and lesson plans and everything. So
wow. Okay. I do know that I have some music teachers that purchase my courses. So hopefully we'll have some more that will find this and we can reach more students. Casey says, can a 7-year-old do it?
Yes, that's the top age. They might think it's a little bit babyish in the beginning, but you know how it is with a 6 or 7-year-old, how they're fascinated with baby toys.
They'll say,
oh no,
both
I don't
things.
play with that, but yes, they do.
Yes, right.
It's that kind of a thing. You could preface it going, I know you're probably too mature for this, but I thought you might think it's fun, and if you have a younger sibling to help through, then that's always a partnership that you can buddy them up, and then, then they don't feel like they're being a baby, infantized.
Yes, right. Well, does anybody else have any other questions? If not, we'll wrap up pretty quickly. Any final thoughts, Karri?
No, I think we've covered, there's nothing coming to my mind. I mean, I've been talking here for a long time.
You have. I've asked all the questions that I had, and it's just such a pleasure to work with you. And I'm so glad we were able to bring KinderBach back to reach a new generation of students.
I feel the same way. I'm very appreciative. Thank you.
So everyone, remember, you can go to music.ourhomeschool.com/KinderBach, KinderBach, like Bach the composer, and find all the information there. So thanks everyone for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.